have no idea exactly what I'm about to say now. I just know at this point I want to talk to all his friends and his family. There's a couple of people besides Cheryl that are not with us now that you will never know, and I barely knew myself, but that had a profound impact on my life, and I want to tell you about them. One is a woman named Ruth Kruda. About 15 years ago, I got a call from this woman who said she was 72 years old and she lived in Red Bank. She had cancer. She was undergoing chemotherapy. She said she was about 80 pounds and she couldn't take it anymore. Could I help? Could I help get her marijuana? Now, I would in a heartbeat. I would do that for her. But at the time, I couldn't. There was none available because the laws of New Jersey were working very well then. And I told her that, and I don't know if she believed me. It might have sounded like I was blowing her off. And then she asked, could you tell me where I could get some and how I would go about doing it? What am I supposed to do? Tell her where to go in Asbury Park and maybe score some pot? She's 72. You know? She wrote me a letter. She sounded scared in her letter. She told me she could give me $100 and I could get it to her whenever I could, and I couldn't. I never heard from her again. I'm guessing she died. I'm guessing she died neglected, feeling neglected. This bill could have helped her. Bad as the bill might be on how many people it could have helped, it could have helped Ruth Kruda. I got a call last year from a healthcare worker who had worked with Cheryl and said there was somebody she was working on that needed to talk to. Turns out this man had a wife who had ALS and she was in some final stages, not doing real good. Thin as a rail, could barely sit up, but she could still barely use her computer, and she was going fast. And he described to me that she was having breakthrough pain, where she was under the care of hospice, and her name is Phyllis, his name is Steve, and hospice couldn't help her. She was having breakthrough pain at night. She would get her medication, she'd go to sleep, and then somewhere in the night she said she'd have a dream that she was in pain, and she'd wake up and find out it wasn't a dream. She was really in pain. And then her husband couldn't help her. I know what that's like. So I brought over a bud of some of Humboldt County's finest that I'd been saving for me. And I thought, I can't smoke this now. What am I going to do? Smoke this for social use when I know there's somebody that can use it? So I brought it over to her. I brought over some butter that I made from some money that somebody else had given me to do that. And I brought this to her and I thought, this really sucks. They're under the care of hospice at the most critical time in a person's life, the time when you don't want to make a mistake, the time you will always look back to, and he couldn't help his wife. Who did he call? The Department of Health? No, he couldn't. Did he call hospice? They already couldn't help her. He damn sure didn't call Dave Evans and say, what can I do? He had to call me. There's no way that I should be able to help somebody that hospice can't. That's sick. I never saw her again. She lasted about another 2 weeks, I understand. Then there's Peter McWilliams, a little better known amongst a lot of people. Among other things, he was an author of a book called Ain't Nobody's Business If I Do. He was arrested early on in California's law with Todd McCormick, people many of you may know. And I'll cut to the chase. Todd was the one that people know as the guy that Woody Harrelson helped bail out of jail for $500,000. Keep him out in the street. Peter McWilliams, his mom put up her house. He wasn't allowed to use Marinol because they didn't have a test that could detect the difference between Marinol and marijuana. Peter had AIDS, and he wasn't well. He couldn't smoke marijuana now. to stay out of jail, he couldn't smoke. If he's in jail, he couldn't smoke. But he didn't risk smoking or even using Marinol because his mother could lose her house. He's a good son. The reward to his mother, this is hard. The reward for his mother is she found him in a bathtub, choked on his own vomit. He really could have used her. And I'm sure she could really have used for him to have it. So what I'm trying to say, I think, is what is obvious. For every one person that's a medical marijuana patient that could use medical marijuana, there are many people who love them, care about them, their family, their friends, and they're hurting along with them. Can't you tell? It goes far beyond the patient. And I'm sorry that I know what that's like, and I'm sorry that's what moves people. I'm sorry that's what moved Lynn Nofziger, former Ronald Reagan, chief of staff as governor and advisor as president, to change his path. His daughter got sick, and he had to help, and it worked. It's what gets people to change. It's a philosophical conundrum. If you could wish people to be sick and it would help others, would you? Where Ken and I differ. He wouldn't. Oh, I would. Oh, I would. I just, whatever it's going to take. So I think what I want to tell you about is what, unless you were at Cheryl's first service, you wouldn't know. And since it's become a little more personal and you know about her, what you do know is she was here in a hospital bed breaking the law right there. You may know that she broke the law by eating marijuana in a congressman's office to get arrested when she could only move her head to say, what are you going to do now? Or that she had me lay her body in the congressman's doorway with only her head able to move, saying, you want to walk all over me? Or over medical marijuana patients, you can start with me. A lot didn't go right in Cheryl's life. I might have been one of the few bright spots after MS took her. She lost a 16-year-old son. She lost a 21-year-old daughter as her health declined. She lost 2 out of 3 kids. And it didn't look like it was going any better in her last week. So to end this up, I want to tell you how it ended up with Cheryl. I want you to know. It was a Sunday, June 1st or 2nd. I don't want to quibble with the chronology. Look at the calendar, 2003. It was a Sunday. She wasn't breathing quite right. Figured better safe than sorry. If it doesn't get better by Monday morning, I take her to the hospital. Even that's a rough trip. As Ken pointed out, getting to Philadelphia, he knew it was hard for him. Tougher for Cheryl. Just taking her anywhere was hard. Even going to a hospital was very hard. So Monday morning I brought her to the hospital and she was having trouble breathing. Maybe a cold. They give her a shot. We go home. We're good to go. And they told me on a Tuesday that she'd lost her ability to swallow correctly. She was aspirating liquid into her lungs. And it was getting worse. But they could teach her how to swallow better. We had a shot, one more thing to deal with.